So this was pretty much an idea that we were like, let's paint the office black, and then they were like, well, let's do a swirl design, and then we literally, this was supposed to be swirls. Okay, and what happened was the tape was too hard to work with.
Yeah.
We're like, it's gonna be straight lines, straight lines, bro. We just flipped at that moment. So that's sometimes it's the way it is. But yeah, so it works. So we can just let's see here. Let me get this moving. All right, what is up, guys? Welcome to another episode. As you just seen this, our intro is just us BSing anyways.
All right, that works.
Yeah, I like it.
No countdown.
No countdown, bro. That's the problem. You make everything too formal. I mean, I do like a cool intro, but you really got to like put some like emphasis in it, you know, especially to keep people's attention. Right. So kind of like when you're just having a conversation and it starts like that, it's almost like it's more interesting from the get-go. That's one thing I've learned after watching like tons of like podcasts and vlogs, and like it's almost now it's if you actually watch a lot of them, they actually start off with just like almost like a 30-second little hit of like the video, and then go to it, then actually go to an intro, you know. So maybe we'll just chop it right here and then put an intro. I don't know, but we'll see. Anyways, guys, what is up here? Here with Josue today with Camino
Property Management,
right? So, you know, we talk a lot about buying, selling, refining, rates, this, that, the other. But one of the things I think that's missing is people don't understand, like, once you own a property, how crucial it is to have property management and what that really does for them. Because truly, people just think, oh, I'm going to go buy, you know, 3 units or 4 units. And, yeah, I'll just take it and I'll pick up rents and all that, which is fine. But typically what happens after that is when they get called at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning because something's wrong, or that renter doesn't pay or whatever, or even if they didn't even do their due diligence when getting that renter.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we're going to cover a lot of topics today, including what cities not to buy in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to, you know, the whole problem with California and the protection that it has for people is actually really frustrating. And
it's continuing to trend in that direction as far as like tenant friendliness.
Right.
But yeah, you hit on a lot of really good points. You know, my parents own investment property, and I think when they bought it, it was just a thing. You just buy investment property,
right?
Because you understand that like you have a home to live in, and then you buy another one just to rent it out.
I think at that you know, those ones and twos, they don't see it as much of a business as it really is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the dynamic has definitely changed. The state has changed. Different laws have kind of come into play. So it's not as easy. It's not as people as it used to be to own rental property. Right.
And that's the thing that, like, obviously we just had these midterms. I actually got into an argument this morning with somebody, but it's funny because the truth is that the laws that, or the people you vote for are where these laws trickle down from, you know? Right. And it's very frustrating to me because I know where a lot of them come from, because I sit there and I probably go down that rabbit hole way too much. But the truth is we know that people in charge are making these laws that ultimately are protecting them, and at the same time screwing the owners. And that's I don't care who you are. That's just a terrible situation. And the banks don't care. They need to get paid, right? And that's ultimately what we're getting to with your info on what cities not to buy in.
Right. Absolutely. And I can say, full disclosure, I used to work not as a lobbyist, but as a legislative liaison to both the California Association of Realtors and to the National Association of Realtors. Okay. So I used to speak to members of Congress, state senators.
And when you were doing that, what was your main focus?
It was housing, right? Whether it was access to finance, whether it was affordable housing, whether it was protecting private property rights. Okay. It was everything that we as real estate professionals stand behind. Okay. And being able to invest into real estate property, creating that generational wealth. So there was a whole, I mean, the California Association of Realtors does have a mission statement, and it includes a couple of different things, including that affordable housing component, including, you know, promoting that American dream. Which
I'm 100% on board with, right? Because, you know, that's one of the things that's always frustrated me. I don't know. Years ago, I came from the car business, right? Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, all right, these guys are already in a bad spot, right? Yeah. And their credit's not the best. Sure. But you come and get a car, and they would lend to you on a car, right? Yeah. But if your credit score wasn't good, you'd get like 15, 18, 20% on the same car that if you had good credit, you're 0.99,
right,
1.29, whatever. Like, you talk about affordable housing and helping underprivileged or however you look at it, but it's actually counterintuitive of what really is.
Yeah, well, it's based on risk, right?
Right, it's all risk. Yeah,
it's not the risk to the consumer; it's the risk to the person issuing the
loan, right?
So you think that someone that has bad credit should have a lower payment?
Because you need to help them, right? But it doesn't seem to be that way.
No, it's not that way.
Yeah. So when it comes to like affordable housing and like again, I think everybody should have a way. But even like you're seeing in today's market, the rates are crazy, right? Like, and I don't want to say crazy because on a I watch some of the stuff on Instagram and people are like, well, historically the rates were this and the rates were that. Yeah, but the prices weren't.
Right.
So the prices are at this level, and now we have the Federal Reserve raising rates, which is driving up essentially interest rates to charge more for the money. So at what point do we, and the reason I'm asking is again digging into you a little bit more on this is I didn't even know that you were part of that. Yeah. And now that you're not, how do you view it?
Well, I'm still somewhat involved, right?
Okay.
I serve as a director. I'm on the board of directors for CAR. All right. So we just came out of our business meetings, and actually we had a interesting conversation with the state economist and talked about basically what was happening with this upcoming, quote unquote recession.
Right.
And he really broke it down to California and then even more specifically to what's happening in LA. Yeah. Because in LA we still have an inventory shortage, right? So property values they're stabilizing, they're not going down. He basically said instead of, because we had inflated appreciation, right? We had 20-30%.
Right.
So instead of that, we're going to see something more reasonable.
Right. And I believe that. I feel, I had this conversation with somebody who does money management, right? And he does life insurance and that type of stuff, right? And he's like, bro, the prices aren't going to go that far. And I'm like, no, think about it. In my opinion, we have what the value should be, and then people are paying upwards of 100K, 150K over, right? So if we and to me, I almost put that in the box of like a premium markup, right? Exactly. You got no inventory, so I'm gonna pay X over just so I can have it, right? So you're kind of playing that game of like, oh, I'm gonna overbid, I'm gonna get it, but now that the market's retracted, instantly that markup is gone.
Yeah. Then
you're at a base level of what the value should be, and then I see about a 10 to 15% drop off of that. Is that kind of what you guys were obviously you're talking to an economist of the state, so tell me a little bit of what you saw or what you got feedback from.
Yeah, so he didn't see a dip in prices, right? He saw more of a stabilization. So there's still going to be minimal appreciation, not depreciation on the value, and that's because especially in California, there's no homes. It's driven by the fact that there's a lack of inventory, and because there is still we still have low unemployment. So some of the other factors that would lead to depressed pricing or a housing crash, there's different factors involved, and inflation's the main driver of that, but the other ones aren't there.
So you say we're a housing shortage, okay? Now, at what level of shortage? Because realistically, we look on, and we're going to use the ugly side of LA, but you look at like the homeless, right? Yeah. This is what, 20 or 30,000 now, I think it's up to, or whatever it was recently. My question with that is, where is the shortage? Because I visually don't see it, right? Everybody talks about a housing shortage, yet there's tons of properties that are vacant. There's a lot of vacant homes, okay? Then you have apartment buildings that have tons of vacancies. So where is the shortage? Because I don't, from a micro level, driving around town, I don't see a shortage. Now, is it a shortage of actual property, or is it a shortage of affordability?
That's a really good point. So you mentioned affordability, and I guess we can go into that. And I'm not an economist.
But no, you're just, bro. Either am I. I'm just telling you. Like, look, that's the best part about this, bro. I am not anywhere in macroeconomics. I don't know shit. I'm just a realist, and when I walk outside down the street, I don't see people not going home at night. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. I see more ADUs being built. I see people living in multiple families living in single households because of the affordability, and I just don't see it. Yeah. So maybe I'm blind and dumb, which is possible. But
and ADUs is a solution to that housing shortage.
Right.
But basically, based on the amount of people that are being born and based on how many people are coming into California, there's so many homes that should be built every year. And I don't know what that number is. We can make up a number. But whatever that number is, we're not keeping up with that demand.
Okay. But in relatively, how many people pass away each year? Right?
Yeah.
And in the last 2 years, we've had a lot of people pass away, right? So if we calculate how many homes became for sale, because that's what happened, right? I mean, there was a ton of properties that went for sale because of people who did pass away, whatever, due to COVID, right? But now we're going into that, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that next 5 to 7 years where forecast is looking at the baby boomer era of that populace, passing on, and all those assets are going to go somewhere. So that property is going to come and be available. And that's where I don't That's where at a baseline, just walking around level, I don't see a shortage, and that's where I keep hearing that, but where? You know what I mean? So you're saying there was also a trend that said kids are being born at much less of a rate than they were over the last 20 years. So I'm just asking, where's the shortage?
Yeah. Well, and part of it is kids are also not moving out. They're staying with their parents.
Of course.
They're not buying homes in their 20s.
But I think that's affordability as well, too, right? Because homes that were 200, 300 grand were affordable on a decent salary. Now you need to be making 140 with no debt, to afford anything right now in LA.
Absolutely.
So that I'm glad we got into this because you have way more knowledge than I do. I've never been to CAR or none. Bro, all I know is I pay fees at the end of the year.
The funny thing is, just to give you an example of something that was happening down the street from us in Fullerton. Fullerton has an affordable housing program. They built all these homes, and basically, if you bought a home, you bought it really cheap.
Okay.
Right? But if you sold it, you had to sell it really cheap. So it was a 3-bedroom townhouse that they were selling for $479,000. Which
in Fullerton,
right?
Which is like an $850,000 property.
These are newer homes.
Yeah.
And so, I spoke to the listing agent. We kind of went through the whole scenario. We had someone pre-qualified to purchase it. We're speaking to the lender. The city's really strict about the guidelines on how to qualify for this property. The person that they ended up, there was nothing affordable about it,
right?
Because the amount that they needed to make and the cap on that income restriction was so narrow. It was like $15,000. You had to come into this.
You have to fall into that perfect little box,
which was right around $100,000. So that person was still making. Well, in this case, it was a single person.
Okay, single. Okay.
But when it come down to the financing, that person needed to come down with $140,000 worth of down payment in order to qualify.
Say what? Where is that affordable? This is what I mean. These programs are written with, B of A did that recently, right? They're like, 0 down. Bro, wait till you get to the fine print. How do you say affordable with 100+ K down?
It was crazy.
That doesn't make any sense.
That was just our scenario that we were trying to,
I get it, but that's what I'm saying. Bro, if you say I'm going to sell this to you at a discount, fine. Where did the 100K come from? Explain where that came from.
It could have come from a gift. In this case,
no.
It didn't even make sense.
Why was that part of the program?
In order to make the ratios work and to fall into that small little window, between the income limit and the qualifying limit for the loan. So they needed to put that amount down. It just didn't make sense at that point, right?
Bro, not only does it not make sense, but now he's tied to a property that he can't sell for a premium.
He can't sell for a premium. He can't ever rent it out. He can't ever there's so many restrictions on that property.
That's nuts, dude. That's the problem. My personal problem with California in general is there's so much red tape, and there's quote unquote programs, but for who and how, right? The intent's there, but the execution is always failing here. Right. I feel like California as a whole has so many options, so many programs. They roll out this program and this, but nobody has access to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's that's my frustration. So from your standpoint, help me understand.
So, I mean, and where I'm at is, the majority of my business is managing rental properties.
How many doors you manage, anyways?
About 300 now.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the majority
that's a lot. That's a lot of doors for one person.
I don't do it by myself.
I
do have a small staff that help me out and oversee,
operations. And
stuff, I mean, it's an 80-20 rule, right? We're all familiar with that.
Of course.
20% of those tenants, or 80% of those tenants are great.
Yeah.
20% make up 80% of our daily activities.
Right.
But yeah, we oversee those primarily for mom and pop,
owners,
housing providers. Yeah, right. Owners.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are those situations you talked about. Either they bought thinking, this was going to be a little bit easier.
Walk in the park, right? Yeah, walk in the park, right?
And then they're like,
hey, we got a slab leak at 4 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, the 4. I love the 4 o'clock in the morning phone calls.
Yeah.
We do have a 24-hour hotline that answers that, so
nice.
that's good for that. But yeah, we handle, and I think a lot of them buy because they're told you should buy investment property.
Right.
It's, 90% of millionaires are made through real
estate. Real
estate,
always, yeah.
And it's true, but
it's sold to them that way, yeah. But along with buying, there's a cost.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So there's not only a cost on buying the property, but there's a cost on managing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, if you have a great tenant, great. I don't get those calls.
Yeah.
I don't get a call until someone's fed up.
Till shit hit the fan.
Yeah, until they're done, until they have a non-performing tenant,
right?
Until they have to deal with an eviction, until they're tired of those 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls, until
the evictions right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go into evictions?
I think we should. I think we should because our both of our faces just kind of lit up the screen right now. The word eviction obviously is crazy because that takes months to happen.
Right. Sure.
That's not. I didn't make rent this month or last month or 2 months. I mean, these are extensive circumstances that you have to get to this point, right? Mm-hmm. And not only are the laws skewed in favor of the renter, but as an owner, man, like it's so costly.
Yeah.
And that's why when people don't understand is like, why are rents so expensive? Why? Because to do business in California is so expensive. Yeah. If you have a tenant who doesn't leave, now I got to hire, obviously, a property management. Then I got to get an eviction company. And then sometimes it turns into worse, right? Where now you're getting lawyers involved. All that costs money. And that's why, I don't think people understand is how expensive it is to. And
meanwhile, you're not collecting rent.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you're still making the payment on that property.
Your property is partly being destroyed.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? Yeah. See, hey, you know how he's a pro? Because he said that with a smile.
It's just part,
it's part of the business.
I wake up and I know every day there's going to be a plumbing issue, and I know every day, there's going to be tenants there.
You're like, you should just have a contracting business on the side and just be like, there you go. Let's go, bro.
If your kids don't want to go to college, don't have them become plumbers. Have them learn their plumbing business.
Yeah.
And then start a plumbing company.
Dude, honestly, you're 100% right. I know one of my friends has a plumbing company. Yeah. He absolutely he kills it
every day.
They kill it. Yeah, plumbing, AC, all that, like anything. A lot of people don't understand that, like that trade is so valuable.
Absolutely.
He just spoke on a housing shortage, right? And California is dead set on it. They're gonna fund whatever you want to build this or rehab that or whatever, right? They're gonna push for it to happen because there's a housing shortage. Guys, if you are not into school, you feel like you are good with a hammer, pretty much, you like hands-on, I highly suggest you figure out and learn the trade of being a contractor because you will make an absolute fortune.
Absolutely.
Like, guys, I know so many people who swing a hammer and easily make 5, 10, 15, 20,000 a month because that skill is so valuable.
Well, we're working with contractors, handyman every single day.
Right.
And so I know what my monthly management fee is that I collect for property.
Right.
But we dispatch a plumber once, and that basically becomes
a cost, a fee. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, those calls at 4 a.m. aren't cheap. Yeah. They come with a premium.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the evictions if you want to.
I know. We kind of go. But see, like I told you, like the cool part about being on something like this is we don't have to run down that rabbit hole and just be, I watch a lot of stuff on real estate specifically, and people get so hung up and they give you the 1, 2, 3, bro. Like all this is part of it.
Yeah.
So so let's start with the evictions, and specifically, guys, we're in LA County now, but we're not in LA City,
right?
Which makes a difference, which we don't understand. And then you have we're neighbors with Orange County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County. Yeah. So we're in this little pocket where the laws literally change within 4 miles of each other, depending on what freeway you're on, right? And it's crazy. So right now, let's give them the gold, right? What's the best county to buy whether it's 2, 3, 4 units or more?
Well, the first thing that we look at is, where can you afford to buy? Right. So I don't really want to go into appreciation trends. I want to go more into my daily activity in the cities that give me the biggest headaches.
Okay.
And those are unincorporated LA.
Okay.
And then the city of Los Angeles.
Okay.
So to explain that further, if I always go into the Thomas Guide maps, which dates me a little bit.
No, that's cool, bro. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You open up a Thomas Guide map and the city of LA. Do you remember what color that is?
Isn't it pink?
White.
Is it white?
The city of LA is white, and unincorporated LA is yellow.
Wow, that's interesting. Didn't even know that.
Unincorporated LA, basically, those are jurisdictions, those are areas that don't have their own city council.
Right.
So they're being run by the board of supervisors.
Right.
And so,
which is a mess, anyway. Sorry.
Those are areas like
just opinions, guys. Just opinions.
Hacienda Heights, Florence Firestone.
Right. Whittier has a big area.
Whittier
has a big unincorporated
Rancho Dominguez
area.
next to Compton. Walnut Park. So these all a big part of East LA as well. Those all fall into the unincorporated area.
I always know when you're in an unincorporated part of LA.
The roads.
Because nobody gives a shit about, dude. There will be 4 foot deep potholes, and then like the next block over is smooth. And I'm like, yo, we spend so much money in gas tax here. We should be driving on gold in California, but there's a whole nother story.
Yeah. So these areas still have these eviction protections at the state level. They expired months ago.
Right.
So if you have a tenant in Riverside, San Bernardino.
Hold on, stop real quick. You said they expired months ago. From what?
Right. Okay, so I'll go back.
Yeah, this because we obviously just went through this huge thing.
We had a pandemic, right?
Right.
We still have one, or I don't know where we're at.
I think it's over, but when somebody pressed the button and said, "Yeah, we're good," I don't know. Over. Yeah.
So there was laws put in place to protect tenants that were unable to pay rent due to a hardship during
COVID, right? Okay.
And so they kept extending them and extending them. And as long as tenant, basically, they never had to prove it. They just had to say that they were experiencing
hardship, yeah.
Another topic we can...
Yeah, it's a whole nother one, right?
They never had to prove anything. They just had to say, I'm experiencing a hardship.
Yeah.
But
it was fill out this form. Thanks, guys.
That's all they had to do.
That's all it was. Got it.
So there was a federal one that expired. There was a state one that expired. And then LA County extended it, and LA City extended it. And there's other little cities that extended it as well. I'm not going to really go into those, but for the county, especially for those unincorporated areas, that's going to expire at the end of this year.
Okay.
Which basically means if you have a tenant that is still claiming a hardship and has not paid you rent. We have a couple that have not paid since March 2020, believe it or not.
But they have a brand new Tahoe in the driveway. I'm just saying.
He's saying it, not me.
I'm just calling it like I see it, bro. Listen, I see more new cars sold. Yeah. You saw it through COVID. Like, I don't know. Everybody had a brand new Hellcat, a Tahoe, a lifted truck, or whatever. It didn't matter. There was more new cars sold in that time. Why? Because they didn't have to pay a mortgage. Why do you think this stuff is coming to an end? And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but now we're recession, inflation, whatever you want to call it. What was that number I said the other day? 728 repos out of one person I know who owns a repo company.
Wow.
1 month.
Wow.
Dude, like the repo business is killing it right now.
What is it saying? That chickens are coming home to roost?
Yeah.
Like that, right? I don't know what that means, but...
Hey, I don't know. The chicken crossed the road already. I'm telling you right now. So so that's the thing. There's so many things that we can go deeper into, and that eviction thing. Who extended it?
So at the county level, it was the board of supervisors, and so it's finally going to expire.
That was my reason. Go ahead.
At the end of this year. So if you have a non-performing tenant, you can finally file that unlawful detainer.
Okay.
January 1st, or first business day once the court's open.
Right. Yeah. How many of those you have filled out already?
Well, we have notices for different reasons, right? But for those, the reality is, again, 80-20. 80% of our tenants are fine. There was some that genuinely experienced a hardship, and obviously we worked with them as much as possible.
Right.
When the pandemic first started and everything started closing, we preemptively sent out emails and letters saying,
we understand.
Yeah. Right. And those that did have a genuine hardship reached out. They said, this is kind of what's going on. Let's figure out a payment plan.
Right.
And so, but there's bad apples on
right. It's funny you said that about the March. I have a good friend of mine. He has a detailing business, and his business was actually able to keep going and not whatnot. And he's like, bro, if I didn't have that ability, they have 3 rental properties. Here we are today in those 3, that triplex, not one person is paid since not March, April, right after. So all these months they've been eating that. It's crazy.
So that's finally going to expire.
Yeah. Right. So now you can actually move forward with an eviction, which in turn in California takes how long?
Well, and I imagine around that time there's probably going to be
a flood, bro. The tsunami's going to come in of applications.
It takes in uncontested. There's all sorts of different processes and deadlines and whatnot, but it's generally going to take about 4 to 6 months
on top of what's already been.
Right, and then occasionally it does get. Oh, I wish it gets extended a lot of times.
Yeah,
because they'll file demurrers or extensions. And,
there's all that's what thing that trips me out is not only are we giving you the benefit of the doubt of not paying, then when you go to court and you have this, then they give extensions and additional help on top of that.
Right.
So, this is why, in my opinion, property management is such a big deal because you're able to vet the renters so well.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand that. That's such a big, crucial mark on what you say 80%. You got to find that 80%, and that's what your job is.
And that was one of the lessons for us when COVID started. Is my worst nightmare was having a tenant move in and then month 2 saying they couldn't pay the rent.
I'm not paying, yeah.
So we became a lot more strict, and we really, we strengthened the way our protocol and our procedures of vetting and qualifying tenants.
Gotcha.
And so during that period, if we have a tenant, if we found that tenant, none of those ever filed. None of those turned out to be bad tenants.
Got it.
Because you can't just rent to your friends or your family. You have to.
The first ones to turn into a mess, right?
And then obviously not only does it mess up your house, but it messes up the friendship or their family,
right,
or whatever it is. But if there's a key takeaway, it's know who you're renting to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what's the best city, state, or not state, county to work with? I don't want to say evict because obviously the whole eviction process, bro. Even in your business, you guys want to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah.
So when you get to that point though, what is the best county?
Yeah, and so that's a great point because people call me, they're like, I want to evict. I'm like, I'm not an attorney. Let's put you in contact with one of our eviction specialists. But for me, it's to have a performing asset. Right. That's why people to stabilize a property and have everything flowing so that they have
the
cash
income
flow
coming in,
where it looks like an actual income statement and
not 1 month and another month and then
And so there's definitely pockets within LA that that I like cities that I like doing businesses. So in LA, I really like Cerritos, I like Bellflower, I like property along the 91 corridor.
Okay.
And then, but they still have some of the flavor of LA County and some of the restrictions of LA County.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the cities also have their hands tied because of the county.
Right. Absolutely. But if you're going to invest, I think first of all, figure out what's going to work financially for you. Mm-hmm. But as far as regulations are concerned, you're looking into the Inland Empire.
Yeah.
Riverside, San Bernardino. If you can afford it, Orange County is a great place to go.
Gotcha. So is Orange County a little more lenient on the whole process? Are they faster when you get if you get to that point?
Right. Exactly. And they are. They didn't have as many evictions as LA County. Mm-hmm. LA County is just it's a beast. It's
just so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's not as many evictions taking place in Orange County. It is more property owner friendly.
Uh-huh.
You're going to find that process is going to be faster.
And for the majority of people like coming in as like their first time, the down payments right now, Kim was on with me yesterday. We're talking about investment properties, and 25% is just the norm now. The rates are pretty legit. Like we're talking 8, 9, 10%, right? Yeah. So now the payment on that property is high.
Right.
And this is where people need to understand why rents have increased. It's not necessarily just because I want to make more money, but we're being lent money at such a premium now.
Sure. So
that's a whole nother thing. So if Orange County may sound like a great idea,
right,
but price point, Inland Empire, San Bernardino, there's I did a search a couple of days ago, and there's still stuff out there. What I did notice, though, if you look at like what the rents bring in versus what the payment would be, it's so off because of the rates now.
Yeah, and so, I mean, we don't go into these areas. I like to be at the most an hour away from our properties, should we ever have that catastrophic emergency. But, I mean, we see, a part of my business initially was built, so if a property owner sells a 2-unit, they buy a 4-unit, right?
They upgrade, yeah.
And so we end up managing that 4-unit or whatnot.
Yeah,
It's kind of a win-win.
It's they're working it like a business rather than
there was
just
a financial strategy in place. To up the amount of doors and up the cash flow.
Of course.
And so we're not seeing that happen in LA as much. If they are selling properties, they're usually moving out of LA.
So they're taking that money and moving it out of the county.
They're moving out of the county, or they're moving it out of the state. Unfortunately, and obviously we want to keep things in the state as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, last year tons of, and I mean literally like half of my clients all moved out of state, and it's crazy to know like the amount of money, going out of California. But with that being said, as far as your housing shortage, right, we were talking about earlier, is there's always somebody to buy it. Right. There's always going to be somebody. I mean, even right now with the rates as high as they are, transactions are still closing. Right. So people are still willing to take that risk, but it's just going to come at a premium when it comes to rents, costs, everything across the board.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not my area of specialty, but I like seeing what other parts of California are doing. And for me, there's 2 cities that both start with B, Bakersfield and Barstow, that really have infrastructure projects that are kind of going on. So in Bakersfield, they're connecting one of the major highways to connect with the 99, I believe it's Highway 48, to connect with the 99 to the 5.
Okay.
And so with that, you see the housing being built.
The boom, yeah.
And in Barstow is a big trucking city.
Right.
And so they're expanding the operations and logistics of that as a hub.
What I heard was Union Pacific is going to put a new base there. Right. They did authorize a new casino, which is that middle ground from here to Vegas for majority of us, right? Sure. Or for me to the river, take the 40, right?
Well, that's the whole point, right? We don't want people going to Vegas. We want to keep them
here, right? So let them blow all their money before they get there. Yeah. So, but I've said Barstow huge. Yeah. I mean, so also just to note for anybody that wants to invest out there, feel free to reach out to us because I do know 100% Barstow's going to blow up. Yeah. My son is actually working on a $800 million solar farm project. It's a 10-year project out there. Wow. So what's crazy is that all those guys that are work on his project, they make great money. Half of them are union. They're going to be here for a minimum for at least, the next 6 to 10 years. Right. Because, things get extended. Yeah. And the whole green energy is just where all the money that government's putting into. So you figure $800 million project, it's not going to happen overnight. Right. And all those people are going to need homes. There's really nothing. I mean, the flip game in Barstow, in my opinion, is gold right now, no matter what the rates are. Because even at $200,000 or $300,000, it's still affordable. Makes sense. 7 or 8% doesn't matter. So want to go flip property? Let's go, man. Let's go.
We got to do something with our money.
Seriously, dude. It's just I see the opportunity there. So yeah, a lot of people used to Barstow was a one-horse town, bro. Right. It was just a flow through, and now you see it booming. You see what's also crazy is you see the sorry, I'm driving like the hotels. Mm-hmm. My son had a basic because what he was doing is getting a per diem, and he didn't really. I was like, don't buy nothing yet. Like, kind of hold off. Wanted to make sure. I love my kid, but I know how he kind of will he'll love a job and then he won't. But he actually really liked this job. And it ended up kind of in a rough way, but he was saying he would go to hotels and they'd be sold out. I'm like, holy shit. So there's a lot of people there, like, So the opportunity, I think, is there huge.
Nice.
You guys are welcome.
Yeah.
Just dropping dimes on you.
Use him as your agent.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, bro. That's all I ask. That's it. And then when we when we buy a bunch of properties, and he can manage it.
We manage the investment.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. Bakersfield is huge. I know Eddie here has, what does he have? 5 or 6 stores up there. He has quite a few up there that he said have done really well for him. Bakersfield's constantly blowing up because as you go to northern parts of LA County, it's just as expensive. Right. Dude, Palmdale became $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. So you start doing the math, it just made sense to go over the grapevine,
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah. And those that do have rental properties, it is a little bit easier with the regulations out there.
Right. Yeah, Kern County's very, from what I heard, is on their game. Well, you got a whole county system, right? And then you don't have the populace like LA County. Yeah. So they're able to get through things faster and they're much more in favor of the owner than the renter. Yeah. And that's huge, guys. It's so big.
And I mean that you can't understate that or overstate it, or you can't say it enough, because the reality is, again, when I can't even enforce my own legally binding rental agreement. It's difficult, right? Because we have an expectation to property owners, and when at this point, we're probably turning away more business from the city of LA than we're actually taking.
Wow.
Because there's an expectation for me when I take on a property.
Right.
There's a certain amount of damage control I got to do, right?
Like if let's say I had 20 properties, right? Like if I hand them off to you, like, bro, I expect you to do what you got to do,
right.
And if you can't because your hands are tied, that's,
Yeah, and I'm the bearer of bad news. I got to tell property owners, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
City of LA, you can't do that. And I've got horror stories of, I can give you a brief one.
Yeah, let's hear a real story. Let's hear the goods right here, bro. Because that's what the people we can. I mean, because let's be real, bro. People don't watch HGTV. Like They want to see the horror part and the good part. So tell me, let's hear the shit show.
Yeah. Well, there's two they're quick and they come up to mind.
Okay.
Or they're the first ones that come up to mind, and they're both in City of LA. One of them's a 10-unit building that we manage in kind of the West Adams area. The owner inherited from her mom. And the mom was a really nice lady, didn't raise the rent for like more than 15 years.
Okay.
So from those 10, they're all studios. From those 10 studios, 5 of them are gentlemen that have been there since the 1980s.
Bro, they're paying like $600 a month, huh?
400.
Oh my God. So we literally had this conversation a week ago, and I was like, if you're in rent control, and I'm like screaming at the camera, right? Why haven't you bought shit? I don't care if you sit there for 10 more years. You should be investing in something. Like, I was like, bro, $400 a month.
Well, less than 400. One's like 376, one's 352, but you get the point, right? And there's no incentive for them to ever move. Plus, they have a little community, like they're all cool. So,
but just think about that.
Right.
$400. Just say $400, right?
And the city has had a rent freeze, right, for the past so many years. City of LA, by the way, is not going to allow you to rent increase your rents till 2024.
Wow.
Right. So
City of LA.
So the white part of the Thomas Guide. So in the past, they allowed a 3% increase, which is $10, right?
Yes.
$10 a month.
That's
which the owner, really nice lady. She just like, okay, that's I inherited this property. I'm cool with it. And so she wasn't very aggressive with that. She's like, it is what it is. That's just the circumstances. So these gentlemen they're getting older. One of them was hospitalized. He was in and out. His son would come and kind of just make sure. And I caught him a couple times. I said, it's great you're taking care of your father, but keep in mind, you don't live here.
Right.
You don't live here.
Yeah.
You're not on the lease.
You don't live
here.
Right.
So City of LA has a moratorium also against unauthorized pets and unauthorized guests.
Okay.
So the father, he passed away. The son straight up just moved in there.
Wow.
It's like, I'm paying $400 now. And he has more rights
than the owner.
As a trespasser.
Yeah.
Than the owner does.
That's ridiculous, bro. I would lose my shit. I would lose my shit, bro. I would be, absolutely not.
And he has every right.
So, This is my point. Where does the common sense come in? Like where?
Yeah,
Just help me understand where the common sense that says, hey, you know what? You know, right and wrong and what's legal and what gives and not only that, but what puts the handcuffs on the owner or you to even move forward to get him out?
And a lot of it is understanding housing policy, right? Because sometimes we put forth these laws, they're well intentioned, maybe without understanding what the repercussions are, not understanding the impact this has on a small mom and pop. In this case, it happens to be 10 units. Imagine if it was a single family home or 2 units, and that was the main source of income for a retiree.
So let me ask you this. What would have happened if you filed a no trespassing on that property?
That's the interesting part, because the LA Housing came, they did their annual inspections. And so they're like, this, and this. And I actually shared the information. I'm like, you know that unit we just went into? He's not supposed to be there. He's a trespasser. The guy's like, get him out. I'm like, okay, can I get you on the record for saying that?
Say that. Yeah.
So there's, the building inspectors telling me something that I ran it through multiple attorneys, and they're like, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one.
Dude, and that's the thing, bro. When you have attorneys telling you that's going to be a tough one, basically it means they know they can't do shit. Yeah. That's code word for that's like real estate agents saying like needs TLC. No, bro, it needs to be completely demoed. Yeah. They're like, tough one. That means you can't even buy your way out of that.
So don't invest in the city of Los Angeles if it falls under what's called RSO, the rent stabilization ordinance.
But if you buy one vacant, then
if you buy one vacant, it's a completely different story.
That's where you guys need to understand. Right. Before you take ownership, and this goes back to who you work with, as an agent, I'm not letting anybody take any ownership unless that place is empty. Yeah. Not kind of empty and not some shit in the backyard. No, because as long as they have any personal belongings in there, they can walk back in and be like, peace out. Yeah. Yeah. So it must be vacant, guys, before you take close on that deal.
Yeah. That would be the exception. Yeah. Otherwise,
yeah, because you're saying there's a rent freeze, right? Mm-hmm. So you get somebody in there, you got to charge a premium because you don't know when that's ever going to end. Mm-hmm. So that could be next year, 4 years, 10 years.
Well, and even still, like City of LA doesn't follow the normal rent increase procedures.
Okay, can I ask a question? Why? Like you know what I mean? Like
you're asking me for a logical explanation.
I want the common sense. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not you voted for somebody and then this guy's just super liberal and he's or super this or super that. I don't, bro. Just what is the common sense behind that?
I mean,
because you've been on the political side too.
For City of LA, I don't have any. I really don't know. I really don't know. So we share our stories with them. We share the stories of the housing providers, the mom and pops that are dealing with these stories. And everyone's got a different narrative, right? Like we always hear about the little lady that's getting kicked out of her place. Right. Yeah, so the news makes a big deal about that. Yeah.
Bad
actors on that side. Right. So we hear that side. We don't hear the mom and pop whose nest egg is
who they've blown through their entire retirement, pulled money out of their 401k just to save their own ass because now they can't even pay for this house that you know what I mean? Yes. Yeah. That's my problem. Yeah. There are people who are taking significant losses on their own personal livelihood because somebody wants to play the part. Right. That's bullshit.
So that's the other story. So we have another property also in the city of LA, 3 units, and the tenant has not paid 1 penny since March 2020. Right. She's under a special program, so we see her income. We know that she's making money. There's not paid 1 penny. She sees the writing on the wall. She actually decided to sue us for habitability.
The property management.
Well, the owner and we were included in there.
Of course, because all she had to do was damage the unit herself.
Yeah.
And then
claiming mold, claiming all sorts of stuff.
Of course.
It's a newer property. Actually, she puts in more maintenance requests than probably everyone else combined.
Wow.
And just, all sorts of stuff because that's strengthening her case. I don't even know if I should give this kind of testimony.
I mean, the reality is there's no names dropped here. It's just reality. So we could bring Eddie. Eddie just walked by.
We're giving tenants ideas of what they could do. But basically, she sued us because if I go after her once the eviction protections expire, it's considered retaliation.
So how is that considered retaliation?
Because she filed a habitability lawsuit against us. She's claiming, and even though it wasn't successful.
You just said it claiming. Doesn't mean it's real.
It doesn't matter. And that's all up to the interpretation of that judge. But she's going to say, listen, Your Honor, I filed a habitability lawsuit. These are the maintenance requests, and most of those are bogus. I mean, everything was bogus, right? She would damage stuff, and then she'd be like, someone broke a window when it was her ex-boyfriend that was trying to break into the property, right?
Go ahead.
There's trash outside. I'm like, well...
Clean up your property.
Yeah, we send a landscaper every 2 weeks, but we can't control what's happening if you or your other neighbors are doing stuff. But so the insurance company, they proceeded, right? And I said, I'm willing to settle this if she moves. And he's like, okay, are you willing to waive unpaid rent? I said, I think we're okay with that, if waiving unpaid rent as long as she moves.
Yeah.
And so they talked to the owner what he was willing to pay out of pocket because he wanted to do. I mean, she's also not a very nice person, as I'm sure you can probably imagine.
I mean, at this point, bro, you paint a perfect picture of what this person is. Yeah.
And so I'm at a conference and we're kind of coordinating and he's telling me what's going on. And at the end, he's like, her leaving is off the table. I said, then this is off the table.
We're done. Everything's done.
If that's not going to advance, let's go to court because this was a mediation. And so he's like, well, let me get back in the room. And then afterwards, he calls me and he's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, she didn't move? He's like, she didn't move. She's not going to move. We're waiving her unpaid rent from March 2020, and we gave her $28,000. The insurance company wanted to just drop the lawsuit. And I'm like, I'm pretty calm. I'm a calm person. I lost it. I lost it, man.
Wow, bro.
I lost it.
This is the problem, bro, with the state as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, this is why people are so hesitant because of horror stories like this. Now, don't get me wrong. This doesn't happen all the time. But the simple fact that this could happen, bro.
That's an extreme situation.
Yeah.
These are 2 out of 300 properties.
Of course, yeah.
Those
two.
That's enough, man. If these are both city of LA where we don't have a case. We don't have a leg to stand on. I'm like, this is my lease. They're like, your lease is not enforceable.
Eddie has one where the guy burnt the house to the ground. Like, the guy burnt the house to the ground and he's still claiming that he wanted to live in the garage.
Yeah.
They already sold the house. It's not his. And then they have other people putting liens on it. And I'm like, what is... it's crazy the amount... And here's the problem. We're so backlogged because there's so many people here and there's so much going on that people don't understand how like deep this goes. This isn't just one person saying, hey, I want you out.
Right.
No, this is, you got the court system, you got the judge, you got people, you got everything that's in itself, that one, operation there, getting to the point where you can actually get a decision that... It takes so long for anything to happen here.
Yeah.
And now you understand why people get real hood with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was recent.
So let me ask you this: what's the outcome of there?
Well, she has a clean slate. She actually asked for prepaid forgiven rent. She's like, I can start paying in January if you guys forgive my October, November, and December rent. And I'm like.
I can't even believe people would ask for that.
She had nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, right? She hasn't. She's won everything at this point. Yeah.
And I was like, this is what we're getting in the city of LA. It was disheartening because. So
what was the? Is she getting that or no?
No, I was like, at what point do we draw the line?
Yeah.
I told you what I was willing to give up. And you went with that.
I would have given her the 3 months and been like, okay, on December 31st, you're out. To remove her from the property at all costs is what it's worth.
Yeah. So obviously there was a disconnect between the owner and the attorney. The owner was also really, really, really upset. Of
course.
Because
it's
his bottom line. Like Like it's his.
Not even a bottom line, bro. It's just sheer disrespect at that point. Like this is just milking the system to the fullest.
Yeah, but she gets to start over. She owes zero right now. Well, now she owes November, but
has she paid November?
She's not gonna. I haven't looked, but
You're like, I don't even look anymore.
No, He's
like, I don't even look at that account anymore.
I clean out my. We do our owner payouts. Continuously between the 5th and the 10th, and no, there was no distribution for the owner on that property.
Yeah, so he knows exactly what. Damn, that's great. Yeah. So now that happened, what's the recourse now? You know she's not going to pay. Let's be real.
Right.
So where do you go from now? What do you have to wait till January to evict her?
So we would have to wait. Well, State of LA, we have to wait till February.
Okay.
So
February. Okay. Because he did extend it, right? Yeah.
Well, that's when that's when the moratorium ends in for the city.
City of LA.
Of Los Angeles. Yeah. So February 1st or whatever the next business day after is, we would have to
file it.
Well, first
you have to post it on it.
The 3. So now there's a new notice. It's not it's a pay or quit, but it's not pay or quit in 3 days. It's pay in 3 days, move out in 30 days.
Okay. So it's reworded. So
you give them a chance to pay within three business days.
Okay.
But then they don't have to move out until the
30th day. So if they don't pay by the 3rd business day, then you have the right to file?
After the 30 days.
After the 30, you still have to wait 30 days.
30 days to file the UD, the unlawful detainer.
Wow.
So that's a new law, by the way.
When did that come out?
Somewhere in the pandemic.
Jesus. Yeah. Okay. So I was still hearing pay or quit now. So that's
it's a pay or quit.
Yeah, but it's got extended now.
But before it was after those 3 days, then you could.
Then file. You could file. You can't. You got. Now they just gave them more time.
30 business days.
Bro, it's so ridiculous. Yeah. It's so So obviously we got these midterms coming up, right? And Caruso is he's still in the lead, I think. I have to check right now. Yeah. He's winning right now. You know, he's made his money building LA.
Right.
I guess we can only hope that he'll help change some of these laws, because I guarantee you from his standpoint, he's dealt with this. You know, if he's in the thousands of units, he's dealt with this. There's 20 or 30 of these happening for him every month.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I imagine that there's a certain amount of turnover that he has.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, we'll see what happens. But I know when a lot of the candidates were kind of out there, you know, stumping.
Yeah.
I would, especially the ones that are elected officials, I would look up their district.
Right.
Right. I'm like, I have rentals all over LA.
Right.
What do their districts look like?
And they're chopped up.
That was one of the. Well, I looked at when I drive through the other candidates' district.
Oh, hold on.
I'm like, what does that district look like?
Hold on. Okay, you were saying about the districts of each one. So like you're looking at their previous districts.
Right. So every candidate has a promise, right? They're all trying to fix it, and they're the magic potion.
They got the magic wand.
Right. Yeah. But they also have a legacy, and so whenever, especially during this mayoral race, I was like, let's take a look at their district. Mm-hmm. And so in this case, the two between Caruso and Karen Bass, I had to look at her legacy, her scope of work for the past 20 years.
She's been in politics. I've never even heard her name.
Yeah, she in the state assembly, she was at one point speaker of the assembly, so she's the highest ranked speaker. But I'm like, let's look at your legacy of work.
Right.
And to me, Caruso spoke more. She represents parts of South LA, which we drive every day, and
we all know what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And it's looked like that for years. It's not like it just happened. Right. No, it's progressively gotten worse. We had a property out there that, you know, you get off the 105 in Central, and you get off and you're just like, you're looking around like, bro, what is going on here? Like, how does nobody care about this? I literally said I wanted to start a company, a trash company or a demo, you know, cleanup company, and just get contracted with the city, because the city itself won't do it.
Right.
Like, they don't put any effort into making sure those areas are
everyone's
clean.
pointing fingers, right? Because you got Caltrans, and in that area right off of Central, that's a mix between county, unincorporated, and city. So depending on, like, it's funny.
And it's crazy because if you exit the freeway, that's Caltrans. Yeah.
Right. So everyone's like, well, it's not ours. It's not us. It's not us. And so, yeah.
I see that, like, you'll see like a car accident, right? And across the street is like, well, locally it's like Downey PD. But if you come this way, it's CHP. And if you're on Imperial and this, and then it becomes Whittier PD. And it's like, you guys everybody's, well, it happened there. No. It's the same thing. And it's on such a big scale that I feel like everybody just turns a blind eye to it. Right. Like that was her, if that's, you're calling it her legacy, man, it's a mess. I don't care who's in charge. Yeah. That's still part of your circle, right? Yeah. So that's my one hope, is that like this dude comes in, knowing from the builder side, knowing how much red tape it is to even build. I mean, just to get a permit in the city of LA takes 6 months right now. It's crazy. Yeah. So you realize that like they want you to like get a permit, change a faucet. Like, come on. There's so much backwards thinking, and I think it's just people that have a cush job, really, in the state, in the city, or whatever you want to call it, depending on what level they're at, and they got to justify their job. So you need a permit. Come in, and there's a fee for everything. Right. There's a fee for everything, bro. Right. This state is like an $80 billion surplus, and there's a fee for everything.
Did you ever do business in Southgate in the past?
I did one ADU there. Okay. Yeah.
So in the past, different cities had like pre-sale inspections.
Yeah.
And Southgate was notorious for being the worst.
People still don't want to do business in Southgate.
Well, it changed. It changed dramatically because they would go inside and they would pick out every GFI outlet and say you didn't have a permit for this. Like they would pinpoint every single little thing. And so your pre-sale inspection was like a book. Wow. And you pretty much had to go through their like preferred contractors.
Is that how it was? Gee, I wonder why they're preferred contractors. Yeah. Okay, go on.
But anyway, at that time,
sounds like Vernon.
Yeah,
Vernon and all their preferred trash companies and preferred
But in this case, it was a case of the opposite. It was the case of the elected officials listening to us, because I was president of one of the local boards, and so I would invite the local mayors to come have coffee with us. Yeah. So the mayor at that time, he came and he went through the home buying process himself, and he's like, "This is a nightmare. How can we work together?" And so in this case, I'm like, first of all, your pre-sale inspection. Like you actually, based on the Fourth Amendment, it could be controversial. You may not have a right to enter that property. Right. And so we kind of worked together. We worked with our community development director, and we got them to undo the interior inspection. Wow. Whereas they were still checking garages, because at that time,
a lot of people
now you can convert your garage, but at that
back time you couldn't. Yeah. Yeah. Now it's the norm.
Now they want you to.
Yeah. Now they want. Now they're promoting it.
Right. Right. But yeah, so we wanted to make sure that the habitability of the garages was still kind of in place. Okay. But it was in that case, it was a city that actually worked with us and understood housing and how it affected property owners, because it was a unnecessary red tape.
Yeah, I mean, I remember those permits taking almost a year to get, and it was like you said, it was so much extra stuff that was not necessary. At the time, they weren't even doing their plan check in-house. They had to be outsourced. Right. So all this other stuff just kept compiling. I don't think we ever had an issue with the existing structure, but to do a new one was... And by the way, we couldn't convert the existing. We had to demo the whole thing, take it down, recompact to start from fresh, because they wouldn't... The existing garage, they didn't, didn't pass their code or whatever. So we had to demo it to start all over again. So we got 3 walls built. Wasn't enough. They've been standing for 50 years. Wasn't enough, Yeah. Yeah, it's not the stuff that they put in place as an idea of like, this is gonna make it better, but it just it slows down the process. Everybody talks about, you're talking about we started off with the housing shortage. Well, help speed up the process. There's plenty of people out there that will build. There's plenty of investors and builders, and even just new entrepreneur that just says, hey, I'm going to buy this piece of land and build on it. Right. You can't build on half of the stuff because it's zoned wrong. Right. Which is crazy to me, because even though as densely populated as we are, there's tons of pockets of land that's untouched, and they refuse to allow people to build on it. Yeah. So we can go deeper on that.
and that's a combination of local governments, but also like just neighbors. That's the NIMBYism. Like, hey, that's great. We have a housing shortage. We need more houses, but not in my backyard, right?
Right. Nah, nobody. Yeah, not next door to me. Yeah. And I always laugh, because I feel like the people. This is where my frustration is that the elected officials never seem to live within. the area that they're helping out
They're
or changing,
to.
Right?
They're supposed to.
Yeah. No, it's always a reason, and that's the thing. You can't fix something unless you know. That's my biggest gripe with like any politics is that they throw money at problems, but they don't actually get involved in fixing the problem. So you can throw money at a problem till you're out of money.
Right.
So what do they do then? Then they just tax more. Right. So it doesn't really fix anything, and that's where I'm hoping this dude Caruso. I don't know. I know enough that I've read what I can read. I don't know the guy personally at all, but just based on what his history is, I hope that at least LA as a city can create more. That's all. So.
Well, we can say that he understands housing.
We know that for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and not only that, but he understands all the problems that lay in front of him, even when you just want to build in a building or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
there's so many. That is the thing. Whenever we would meet with legislators, we would have to educate them on housing because sometimes
they don't know anything about it. Yeah.
Sometimes they come from education. Sometimes they come from all different worlds, and so it's when they understand and they're like, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
This, and we're representing their constituents.
Right.
Like this is what makes sense.
This is
in your district. But yeah, I think the city of LA has had a difficulty with that.
Well, I hope for the best on the new one. I hope he does pull it off. I checked right now; he's still in the lead. So our voting system will take 14 days to find out for sure. But something that we could find out in 5 minutes, but they're gonna find out a way to take longer. Yep. Other than that, man, dude, you have been a wealth of knowledge. Like, I appreciate you coming on here and like literally dropping a lot of knowledge for people who just want to get into it. So first of all, the company, your business is called El Camino, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna bring it up for everybody here. I'm gonna split the screen. They can see on here. So I know you can't see this, but this is what it looks like. I'm gonna pop us on this side so people can see your website. You were telling me you wanted to show me something on here that.
So yeah, this is our site, and it allows you to communicate with us.
Can they go in here and start instantly?
This is our portal for both our owners and our tenants. So each of our tenants has their own dedicated portal, their own website. Same with our owners. So the owners have a login. They can see their statements. They can see their financials.
Nice.
The tenants can see their ledgers. They can make payments, make maintenance requests through those tabs up there. But also for prospective people, kind of list our services. Mm-hmm. And so we just added a nice little widget on here that allows you to, where would it be? I don't even know where we put it, but it's a
work in progress.
No, it should be on there. It's a rental survey. Maybe
okay.
Is it under owners?
Let's see, owners.
There we go. Rent analysis.
See, wrong tab. We're good.
Boom.
Though.
So it allows you to kind of do you pop in your address, and then it sends you a rental survey. Nice. One of the questions we get a lot is, how much can I rent my property for? And so you put in some of the information in there, and then it sends you back
generate.
Sends you a little report of.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if they want to get started with you, that's a simple way to just see if we're even in the same ballpark.
Right.
And not only that, but also for prospective buyers, they can actually jump in here, put in the address that they're looking at purchasing, and kind of see what it's going to go for.
Yeah, this one's not connected to the MLS, but
just if they can pop in the address to get a rent house, right?
So I see what you're saying. If they wanted to get an idea of what
because that's one of the things that like I can honestly say with a lot of real estate agents, and even myself, we're quick to be like, oh yeah, it should be around,
right?
Should be around. This is actually a great tool then,
right?
Just to jump in. I mean, I'll use it honestly. I didn't even know. I know I've used like Rental Meter in the past. But something like this would be awesome where you could just jump on and kind of tie you guys together from the get-go.
Yeah, it's neat.
This chat box is cool. I like that because I feel like those are so active. Mm-hmm. If you have good response times on those, I tend to do business with that company.
Right.
Like so much more aggressively than anything else. Because I have a question, I get it answered. Like, it's pretty legit.
Everything's a work in progress. And, we've tried different systems, but we find that more people are likely to use that chat box than actually there's the contact us form there. Like no one ever uses that.
Right.
I think in the
kind of funny,
the 5 years we've had this website, maybe 4 people have
called. Yeah.
They've actually filled out all the boxes, but that chat box, people are more likely to use it.
Yeah, it's quick. It's easier to use, and everybody's doing this on their phone anyway. So it's one of those deals where it's the accessibility to everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, dude, it's laid out nice. You guys, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to jump on here. You got a pretty good layout of how it works. So
yeah, testimonials and all that other stuff.
Good stuff, bro.
Yeah.
So anything you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah. Well, I guess the biggest takeaway is, real estate will always be a great investment, right? If you do it right.
Right.
If you do it correctly. And I think having the right team, just the way you would have the right lender, the right, escrow company, title company.
Of course.
Buying real estate, you want to have the right people in place. And so I make that component. I'm part of that team. I'm that property management component. Yeah. So we make sure we become the eyes and ears of that property. Our clients, they're out of state. A few are out of the country.
I was gonna say, how many of your clients don't even touch that property ever?
Well, they're not supposed to. That's
your job, right? Yeah. So that's just. But a lot of people go into buying a property and they feel like that added stress. Right. Recently, I had somebody literally tell me like, "This is too much for me."
Yeah.
Well, it's too much for me because you're taking it on yourself.
Yeah.
Because you choose not to use somebody to manage it for you.
We have the systems in place for rent collections, for maintenance requests,
all of it,
for all that other stuff. And I mean, we have a flow. We have a system in place. Our fees, I'm not a CPA, but most CPAs will tell you they're an operating expense that are tax deductible.
Yeah, so
it becomes a wash.
Trust me, my next guest, I'm going to bring on a tax guy because we really want to break down. We definitely want to break down, like that. Like you're dropping that knowledge, right? Like the cost of your business is actually tax deductible for the owner,
right?
And it's like, I have a lot of people giving me pushback with rates. I'm like, you're not paying the rate, you're getting the write off. And the renter's paying the rate. Like, why are you not, and sometimes it's just, I'm glad that, this is new as a whole, right? Dropping more knowledge like this is going to be good for everybody. But, for your business, my business, but for people who are scared, right? To pull that trigger on buying that property, this is why we need to put all this information out. It's easy to say, hey, call Josue, or hey, call Rich and whatever. Yeah. In that conversation, we can answer their questions. I'm trying to do all this, get more people the value and get them online.
Yeah, I think this tells a story of, definitely
good and the bad.
Some of the horror stories, but again, that's 2 out of 300 properties.
Yeah,
we're never going to let it to get to that point. Yeah, because first of all, we're going to vet the tenants pretty thoroughly. So that's not.
So I'm going to take it you didn't vet that lady.
We inherited that property.
See, it wasn't his deal. It wasn't his deal.
No, I mean, we stand behind it. We stand behind the properties because, as I mentioned, that was what kept me up at night during COVID, was having someone move into a property and say,
next month, like, hey, I'm out. All right.
So we doubled down.
And what's crazy is they had every right to.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
So, and I think it's bad karma, right? Yeah. It kind of comes with the territory. Like, people who are going to do bad, it's going to receive bad. Is what it is.
Absolutely. I mean, tenants became very sophisticated, and so we go to. I mean, we're even matching up direct deposit statements with bank statements because they can falsify one. Most don't think about falsifying both, right? So we're matching up those dates.
You're doing your due diligence to make sure,
And so we're there's always an amount of risk involved. We're trying to minimize that risk. Give that owner peace of mind. Have a cash flowing machine. Yeah,
and that's ultimately what this is about, right? I see a lot of people talk about generational wealth and building, for you and your kids long term. I've always said, like, I actually want to, just drive by buildings and tell my daughter, like, oh, that's yours, and they'll be like, what? Like, just they're mind blown like that. It's so cool. But this is what we have the ability to create and manage and help.
I agree, man.
Yeah. Guys, I appreciate your time. Josue, thank you for dropping in.
My pleasure.
We're going to bring you back because we're going to hear more about this fasting. And we're going to get deeper on that. He's got a very interesting story about an earthquake that he flew into on purpose.
Yeah. People fly out of earthquakes.
Yeah, no, he was like, oh, earthquake, I'm on my way.
Sweet.
So, it's going to be, we definitely got to have that. Yeah. These talks are good because they're very informational, but we want to hear real life too, and that's an awesome experience that I'm sure tons of people would love to hear about. So, till next time.
Yeah, let me know.
Appreciate it, bro.
Sweet.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.